Hey, my Legion, how y'all doing today? I want to do a DVD review of the two midnight movies made back in the 60s, Comedy of Terrors and The Raven. But before I do, I have to give out a shout out. Well, I want to give out a shout out. They requested me give out a shout out about a week or so ago. And sometimes one of the most unfortunate things that happen on my channel, I get so busy, I get behind in my comments, and I wanted to make sure to give them a shout out because they asked me to. They asked for a subscribe and a shout out, so I said I would, to Widdbros TV. Now they've been around for about a month, a little over a month, and they do a bunch of gaming videos. The last few videos have been like the soccer video games and stuff like that, pretty neat. And I wanted, if you get a chance, just check them out. They got some cool stuff. I actually have another shout out coming a little later in the video that's more related to what I'm reviewing. But check out Widdbros TV. They're cool guys. Okay. Now, on to the DVD. Now, these are two of the American International movies. Now, I saw it the way it's listed on the DVD, Comedy Terrors and The Raven. So I saw Comedy Terrors first, but The Raven influenced Comedy Terrors, so I'm going to be reviewing The Raven first, just because it's a little bit easier. And The Raven is one of the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations that Roger Corman did. Now, this one was a little bit different. This one is the one where he thought that they were starting to look a little bit alike. That's what he was fearing, because they had a featurette on a bonus feature about Roger Corman's take on, where it was Corman's Comedy of Poe featurette. And he wanted to do something to distinguish The Raven from the other ones, and they said that The Raven was more difficult because it was an adaptation of a poem. So he decided to add comedy into it. And it's weird because they promote it as a straightforward horror film, and then, when you went to see it, you found out it was somewhat comedic. And I don't know if how fans react to that, but it made money. All the American International films made money back then. And I remember I saw this a long, long time ago, back in the 80s, early 80s, while I was still in middle school, and they had like a late night horror film on local TV on Channel 24. It was the Late Great Horror Show hosted by Jim Cook. And then that got canceled, and like a year or so later they brought it back another version of it, but not as good, called the Just Right for Late Night Horror Show. And I saw this on there. The one I saw first there was an older one in the 30s with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff called The Raven, which was awesome. I love that movie. And this one came along, and I was really excited about it. This one's in color, though. And it's Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff all together, and Jack Nicholson's in it. And I don't think I gave it the respect it deserved back then. It didn't help my dad was saying it was stupid like every minute or so, because my dad was really famous for saying a movie's stupid, especially horror films. And whenever the late night horror films came on, he said, well, it's American International, it's going to be stupid. Yeah, he was famous for that, even though, I wish he could have watched this again with me. And the Comedy of Terrors, I think he would like Comedy of Terrors. And it's a pretty good movie. I was a little bit, like I said, back then I didn't give it the respect it deserved. I said it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, and my friend John Walkowitz, back when we were in middle school, said he thought it was really good. Now, seeing it again, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I did back then. Basically, it starts out with the poem, the reading of the poem, part of it, and they show like a raven come tapping on window door, and Vincent Price lets him in. And then when the raven starts talking, it pretty much isn't that much about the poem anymore, except little references throughout. And basically what is after that is about dueling sorcerers. And it's pretty interesting. The weird thing is, the thing that holds it back is the low budget, because they had lots of special effects in there. And with the comedy, it kind of gets a little too cartoonish. So, that lowers it a little bit. It's not serious like Tomb of Ligeia or Mask of the Red Death or something like that. I think it's one of the lesser ones. It's right up there. I think it's well, it's a little better than Premature Burial. But I did like it. I give it 8 out of 10 for The Raven. It's still pretty good. And I enjoyed it much more than I did when I was a kid, because I think I was expecting something on par with the old black and white one, which I really loved, which didn't have that much to do with the Poe poem anyways. Well, I think it had actually less to do with the Poe poem, the old Raven with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. And I wanted to give a shout out to Wonder Woman, also as Diana Prince, from Facebook, because when we talked on Facebook a while back, she was saying how much she loved the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, the costumes, the sets, and stuff like that. Now, this one's a little bit different. It doesn't have the... it has all the elements of that, but I mean, it's different. It's not as... it's not like Mask of the Red Death or Tomb of Lydia that really had a costume, but it does have some cool stuff in there, and I want to give a shout out to her, because she said she really liked these. I don't know if she liked The Raven, though. She might have. She probably would have liked Tomb of Lydia. Well, I assume she liked all of them, because she was mentioning them. And this is the one that's produced by Roger Corman. And the one thing is also famous because The Raven also begot a movie called The Terror. And I guess that it was... they still had the sets, and Roger Corman said, well, let's try to make another movie out, because he was always trying to do something. And he made The Terror in like 3 days with Boris Karloff and Jack Nicholson again, and Dick Miller's in it. And he had a bunch of different directors directing it. It's a very strange film. It's probably the strange... I mean, you probably heard... That's the one thing you probably heard about Roger Corman, making that off of the sets of The Raven, while he was filming it while the sets of The Raven were being taken down all around him, I guess. Just like you might have heard about Little Shop of Horrors, he made that in 2 days. He made The Terror in 3 days. And they're all feature length. They're like at least 80 minutes long. I think Little Shop of Horrors is a lot shorter than that. But I mean, it's not like the Full Moon movies that are like, hit like an hour and 1 minute. But I mean, Roger Corman at least tries to make a real movie out of stuff, you know, for the most part. And it's very entertaining. I give The Raven an 8 out of 10. The Terror is probably about maybe 7.5 out of 10. Very strange film. And because The Raven was so popular, they asked the writer Richard Matheson to do another horror comedy. Even though, like I said, a lot of people unsuspectingly went to The Raven expecting a serious horror film. And I assume that there was touches of humor. I assume maybe that they were... I don't know what their reactions were when they found out it was a comedy. But I did like it a lot more than when I saw it when I was a kid. And about the horror film, late night horror film, horror hosts. I remember when I used to go to my grandma's on Channel 43 when it used to be a lot cooler. In the morning, they used to have, I think Saturday at 12 in the 12 noon Saturdays to like 4, they used to have this one guy dressed like Superman that used to have a horror movie show. And then I think on Channel 8, the Cleveland Channel, they had Big Chuck and Little John. I've seen them a few times. And then, like I said, whenever the late grade horror show was done, and then Just Right for Late Night horror show was done, they had Elvira was on for a while. And that's when they had Elvira's show was on Channel 24 late night. Okay. What? It was on midnight, I think, or 11:30 or midnight. And then they had Night Rocks. Jim Cook went from doing horror shows to doing music video shows. Well, anyways, the next film, because The Raven was so successful, they asked Richard Matheson to make another horror comedy, and then he decided to do Comedy of Terrors. And he said that the movie didn't make as much money because comedy was in the title. And they said that he was friends with not Jack Nicholson, the other guy, where's it at? James Nicholson, one of the guys, James Nicholson and Samuel Arkoff, the two guys who were the main guys for American International. And he was friends with James Nicholson, and apparently West Side Story came out same time, and he wanted to call the movie Graveside Story. And Rich Matheson said that Comedy of Terrors was a better title, but he said if it was called Graveside Story, it probably would have made more money. But Comedy of Terrors is a full-out horror comedy, full-out comedy. Very funny. I mean, that's the one I think my dad would like, because he likes silly comedy too. Lots of slapstick, Lots of humorous stuff. Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Boris Karloff, and Basil Rathbone's in it, and Rhubarb is in it. And I like that they put the cat in the starring credits. And the cat's throughout the movie. And the cat's really funny, and then the cat has a big part during the ending credits. And it's really cool that they put the cat's name in the starring role, which I like that. Anyways, what this is about is Boris Karloff has like this funeral parlor business that he kind of got from his father-in-law because he married his daughter. His father-in-law is played by Boris Karloff. He's very old. And he kind of took over the funeral business, and they run it dirt cheap. Like, they bring the coffin out, and they have the service and stuff, and when the people leave, they pretty much dump the body in the thing, and they take the coffin, because they only have one good coffin. They keep reusing the coffin. They've reused it for 13 years. And basically, they're starting to get hounded by the landlord, played by Basil Rathbone. They haven't paid their rent in like a year. And then when times get tough, they decide to create their own business by killing people and then putting them in, bring them to their funeral parlor. I don't want to give away a whole lot more because I don't give away spoilers. Just like The Raven, it's about dueling wizards, kind of dueling sorcerers. And this one is about like a funeral parlor run dirt cheap. And kind of reminiscent of, if you ever saw, about more gruesome, if you ever saw Tales from the Crypt, about that guy who ran that mortuary dirt cheap when he would embalm people with tap water. I remember seeing that one. That's pretty bad. But Comedy of Terrors is really funny. I really like this. I like this better than The Raven. I give this a full on 10 out of 10. Well, I'll say 9.5 out of 10 because the second half isn't as good as the first half. Is really good. The second half is still really good, but not as good as the first half. It's a little bit uneven, but it's still really funny. So like I said, I really enjoyed both movies. With shout-outs to Widdbros TV and Wonder Woman. So, until next time, buddy. Oh, also, I want to talk about the bonus features before I forget. The bonus features for Comedy of Terrors has a Richard Matheson Comedy of Terrors featurette. They call Richard Matheson Storytellers. And he talks about the writing process and some stuff he's doing now. It's really informative. They have the trailer for that. And then there's more special features for The Raven. There's Richard Matheson Storyteller for The Raven feature, because he wrote the screenplay. He wrote a good screenplay for that. He wrote an excellent screenplay for Comedy of Terrors. Then they have Corman's Comedy of Poe featurette, where they actually talked to Roger Corman, which is really cool. And then they have a promotional record, which is actually very unusual. It's like they talk about the movie, and they pretty much talk about all the way to the ending stuff, almost. And then in between they have like little clips of the poem The Raven. It's pretty unusual, and they have like a little slideshow from stills from the movie and stuff. Which is pretty interesting, but it's a very unusual promotional record. And then they have the original theatrical trailer. But this is a very solid DVD. I really enjoyed this. It brought back some memories. I wish my dad could have watched these, especially Comedy of Terrors. And, I just got behind on my DVD watching. And The Raven was the very first time that Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Boris Karloff appeared together in any movie. And also, for the fun fact, for Comedy of Terror, the film was scored by Les Baxter, the composer who wrote the whistling theme for TV's Lassie. I never saw Lassie. So, there you have it for my DVD review of Comedy of Terrors and The Raven, with shoutouts to Widdbros TV and Wonder Woman. So, until next time, bye, please take care of my legion. Where's Maggie at? There she is. She's laying on the ground. Alright. Take care, everyone.